Welcome back to episode 9 of the Double Down podcast presented by WaterWave. Today is November 18th, Friday, and we are back in the studio after taking a week off. I'm excited to be joined on Zoom this week, but before we get to that interview, we're going to hit the Double Down weekly wrap-up. I guess we can kind of consider this a 2-week wrap-up after taking some time off last week. Appreciate you guys staying patient with me, but therefore there's some more to talk about. So I left you guys last week kind of explaining about my track test. A test to return to athletic competition is what they call it. Sure, our guest has kind of gone through these kind of same tests as well, but I got those results back, and even better than I expected. Last time I tore my ACL, my left surgery, at 4 months I was at 46% comparison from my left leg to my right leg. So a number, not quite good enough, not quite where I wanted to be. But this time around with my right ACL, I got my test results back at 4 months, and I was at 78% comparison. So super excited about those news. Not only that, but my left leg had gotten even stronger than the strength of my healthy right leg pre-surgery. So things are going really well. Doc just had a doctor appointment on Wednesday and got great news from him. So we're just slowly chugging along. For those of you that have heard from our guests in the past, when we talk about ACL surgeries, you don't really talk about return to competition until like minimum 9-month mark. So that's kind of where we're chugging along to right now. We're about almost 5 months in. So I'm going to definitely keep you guys updated with anything that comes my way there. In terms of sports, my Timberwolves are back on schedule. We're 6-8, we're 10 seed. We're chugging along. We're trying to get back into that playoff contention. It's early, but we're trying to mold this season. I've had a lot of people ask me, are you giving up on the Rudy trade? Are you done with it? I'm not. I'm trying to stay confident. I'm trying to just let that thing play out. D'Lo's playing a lot better. Cat's getting involved, so we're going well there. Lastly, go for hoops. We took a loss to DePaul this week, but we're ready to jump back. We actually, guys, like I told you guys, we pre-record episodes, but we play Central Michigan tonight, so we're excited about that one. I'll have news about that one, and then after this game, we hop on a flight and we go to Cali for a week for the SoCal Challenge. And we've gotten a lot of snow here in Minnesota, so I'm excited to dip on out and head to Cali. So that'll be a good time. I think we'll give a good opportunity for us to bond as a team. Not only that, we'll have some good games out there. So definitely tune in. I think those are on CBS. So tune in next week to those ones. But yeah, stay tuned for our featured interview coming up next. I'm excited to be back here on Zoom with you guys. The Buffalo, Minnesota native has led his high school to 3 consecutive section finals. After his time at Buffalo, he committed to University of Mary. After a year at Mary, he transferred to St. Cloud State, where he is in his 2nd year with the program. A fellow Minnesota Hooper, a new friend, Tony Dahl. Appreciate you coming on the pod, brother.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm so excited to have you, join me here. You probably listened to the pod before, and we talk about adversity and injury and that kind of stuff, but I want to start before that, because your story is so unique. Bring me back to your upbringing in sports. Was sports something that was kind of like brought to you at an early age? I just saw you had a brother that played sports as well. Like, was sports kind of integrated in your family culture at a young age?
Yeah, it was a lot of basketball and football, a little bit of baseball. I couldn't really grasp the baseball concept because I would just kick the dirt a lot.
Yeah.
But football and basketball were kind of my upbringing. I mean, I had a basketball in my hand since I was probably 4 or 5.
Yeah.
My age group, we played up, so we were a 3rd grade traveling team, and we played up in 4th grade and 5th grade tournaments.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my life, and it still is my life.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, I've talked about, a lot of people on the pod who, especially in the sports world, it just like it consumes you, and it becomes, I think it's the competitive, atmosphere and the competitive nature of it as well. Growing, playing basketball, playing, football, did you know, where was it they kind of like knew like, hey, this, I like basketball more, I like football more? How did that kind of develop in your upbringing?
It was actually really tough. My junior year, so I played football pretty much my whole life, and then freshman year was on varsity, and then all the way through I was on varsity. But junior year is when it really got tough. We were really good, and we just came off like our best season we've had. And then going into my senior year, that's when I got hurt my 2nd time. I had options to go play Division I football or play Division II basketball, and I really didn't get the opportunity to play my senior year of basketball or football. So it was kind of just a toss up,
Yeah.
and I decided basketball, and I have doubts with it, but I'm enjoying it. I'm glad I stuck with it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. I think it's unique, and I think it's such a special thing that I wish people would take more advantage of is playing different sports in high school, and trying to figure out what you like more, or what your future could possibly be on, especially guys like that we have on the pod that are athletic enough and strong enough to play different sports. Your story is so unique compared to a lot of the people I've had on so far. A lot of the people I've had on so far have been hurt in college or hurt after college. Your story started pretty young. It was 2016 of your freshman year, where you tore your ACL and your meniscus. Take us through the incident first, before we get into kind of like the post-incident reactions. How did this happen? You don't see these injuries as much in younger people, but you got it when you were what, 16 years old?
Yeah, it was around 15.
Mhm.
And so it was a Friday night. We were playing St. Michael, Albertville, in a football game. I was playing outside linebacker, which I had no business. I was 160 pounds, jamming a 215-pound tight end
Yeah.
at 15 years old. But there was a sweep that came my way, and I essentially just like got to my read, took 2 drop steps, planted to go attack, and then it just gave out. And it
Mhm.
was kind of like in my head. If you've ever heard like a shotgun shot,
Mhm.
it's exactly what it sounded like. And I didn't really know what happened because I've never really been hurt like that. The only thing prior to that was maybe like a fractured arm
Yeah.
from doing something stupid. But I got helped off the field, and I'm like, oh, I don't really know what it is. And my trainer, he did all the tests, like the mobility test. He's like, I don't know, it really just might be a sprain.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, all right. So I was on crutches for about a week. And I was getting ready to get suited up that Thursday before we played our first section game. I
Wow.
was going in, and so Thursday. My mom is like, "Hey, like let's go get an MRI," because
Mhm.
he just thinks it's a bad sprain, and I was fully prepared to play on
Yeah.
Friday. And I was like, "Well, let's go get an MRI," and I'm like, I mean, whatever. Like, I don't think it's gonna do anything. Sure enough, go get an MRI. I'm waiting at Culver's in Maple Grove, and the doc calls me back, and he's like, "Yeah, like we just go through your MRI results." And I walk in, and he's like, "Are you sure you're all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I feel great. Like just a little stiff here and there." He goes, "Well, you have a torn ACL and meniscus." And I'm like,
Wow.
I look at him, and I'm like, no, like that's physically impossible.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, like I'm being for real. And I just, yeah, at that point I didn't really know what to do. I had a lot of different mixed emotions, and I was pretty upset, but I eventually got my way to the game, and was able to support. So
Yeah, wow. I mean, you talk about not knowing and then to get ready to play a section game. You're probably all juiced up. You probably got all the
yeah,
motions. Like you probably took some C4, smelling salts. Like this man's ready to play some football. And that's a crazy, twist of events. How did, what were your kind of initial reactions? Like you mentioned not kind of knowing and kind of being confused. Like where did that kind of lead to through the football game? Because obviously you go and attend the game and you can't play. Like where was your head at? How were your emotions kind of flowing?
as soon as it happened, as soon as the doc told me, I'm like, all right, like what's the procedure here? And he's like,
Mhm.
well, you have to get surgery. And I had never had surgery before. And I'm like, surgery?
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't just wear a brace and it'll heal on its own. And he's like, no. I'm like, all right, like, well, how long is the surgery? He goes, well, 9 months to a year. I looked at him. I said, no, you're being dumb. And he goes, no, like for real. And I'm like, that's when I just like I broke down,
Yeah.
and because it was pretty much my whole life at that point was basketball and football, and
Mhm.
I was projected to have a really good season in basketball that year. And I looked at my mom, because my mom was with me, and my younger brother was with me, and we got in the car, and I think there was maybe 3 words said the whole time, back to the
Yeah.
house.
Mhm.
And I just remember seeing my little brother in the rearview mirror. I mean, he's maybe at that point, maybe 7th grade, 6th grade, something like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
and he's just crying. And I look back at him. I'm like, what are you crying for? And he's like, well, I don't get to watch you play. And I'm like that one was what that hurt.
Yeah.
And then I got to see my dad. And my dad's like, I'm so sorry. Whatever we have to do, we'll get it done and we'll get you back on the court, on the field. And I mean, it was at the game. It was I'm really close to what was my former head coach for football. He his son is my best friend, so I've known him for a long time. But I got there and they're all standing in the locker room, like all the players are and the coaches are outside, and just seeing him in tears greeting me was like, all right, like I know this is family and this is real and it's gonna be hard, but it takes a group to surround yourself with that will help you.
For sure. And it's like you're going through, your emotions are so mixed. Like you want to cry, but you also want to stay strong. You also want to like, give your team like, hey, like this is, you guys can still do this, and then, but also like, you're like, damn, this sucks. I know how long this is going to be out, all these kind of emotions. It's it's a tough one. How long were you out on that? Were you out the full 12 months to a year? When were you able to kind of return? Because obviously, basketball season's right around the corner too. So you're going to miss the whole basketball season,
Yeah, I think so. I did it, I want to say late October. Surgery was maybe first week in November. I didn't get back. So I think it was about that 8.5, 9.5 month mark, because I sat out my first 2 tournaments of AAU.
Okay.
And that's when I got back. And I mean, I obviously things have progressed a lot through like rehab. And so all that was pretty new. And I came into the AAU game so out of shape because I didn't really know what to expect. But I mean, yeah, it was difficult. But yeah, that one was the full like 9.5 months.
Yeah. Well, you talk about, coming back into AAU. I know I've talked a lot with my former guests about your mentality coming back into sports. Take us through kind of that first initial, hey, I'm back. I'm feeling pretty confident. Did you feel confident? Were you able to kind of just go out there and be yourself on the basketball court? How did that kind of process happen for you mentally?
For my first one, it took a while. I didn't really feel like myself the whole AAU season. It wasn't really until halfway through, I would say, even through football season, I didn't really feel myself that following year. I would say halfway through the basketball season is when I started feeling like, oh, like, all right, like I can do this. Like I trust myself and I trust my knees. But people don't realize, but it's a huge mental thing. And it's such a mental game that not only like you have to have faith and trust in your knees, but it's also like, hey, like I'm good enough to do this. Like I'm good enough to go out and do what I do normally.
Yeah, well, no doubt. And then, I even talk about, coming back and trusting it. And, people would give up, people would be done, especially at a young age. I think, I had a, high school friend who, at a different school, but they tore their ACL and they were just kind of done playing sports. And I was like, I always told myself, I was like, if I tear my ACL, like I'm going to be done. Like, I even told my trainer after my first one, like if I tore a second one, I'm going to be done. How did that process go for you? Was there ever any doubt in playing sports again? Or, was there ever any doubt in like being able to be a competitive athlete again? How did that kind of go down for you?
Throughout the whole process of all 3, I told myself after the second one that it'll be time if I tore it again. I'll be time to hang it up. But then, just talking to my family and some of my teammates, and then my old high school coach, who is probably one of my best friends. I talk to him every single day. His big thing was look, like you can be done. Just know that at the end of the day, like you are good enough to play Division II basketball and you are good enough to do this. Yeah. And just kind of sparking conversation with him and my dad. For me, it was hold up, like I want to prove to myself. Yeah. I want to prove to these people, these coaches that, didn't really take a chance on me. I want to prove to these guys that I can actually do this and prove to myself that I'm good enough and I have faith in myself that I can do it. Yeah, no, I feel like that's the only mindset you can have. I think
like you said, obviously you want to prove other people wrong, and that's great. I've always had that kind of mindset too. But at the end of the day, it's proving yourself right. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it right away. It's, obviously nobody knows what you've gone through. Nobody knows the dog days of rehab. Nobody knows how brutal it was. And now it's like, hey, can I prove, myself right? And I think, you talk about going through the first one, then headed into the second one, which was 2019 summer, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, kind of take us through that one. I didn't, really know how it went down. Kind of take us through that whole process, re-injury. I've done it twice, people that have done it twice. Did you know right away, kind of deal?
Yeah. Yeah, I knew exactly. We were playing in a breakdown tournament my summer of my senior year. We were playing Eden Prairie, and I literally think the next day is when we started football. So this was a
Wow.
Sunday. Um, but we were playing good. We were up on EP, and I drove left, and I came to a jump stop, and one guy's knee was on the outside of my knee, and then I got pushed from the inside, and so it twisted all in one, and I threw the ball over my head out of bounds, and I'm just laying on the ground, and I'm in so much pain, and I look at my coach, and I'm like, I'm done. Like I can't do anything.
Yeah.
He goes, what do you mean? I'm like, I just tore it again.
Yeah.
And so I get helped up to the bench. My mom and my dad come over to me, and they're like, are you all right? And I'm like, no, like I just tore it again.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, like let's be optimistic. Like let's go see the trainer. And then there's a trainer there, and she's like, yeah, I can't really do anything. I can give you ice. And I literally told her, I said, thanks, man. But with all due respect, I looked at my dad. I said, let's go get an MRI right now.
Yeah.
And he's like, are you sure? Like, you don't want to wait like a couple days? I said, no, let's go get an MRI right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we're sitting there, waiting. It's Sunday at Tria in Bloomington, so it's slow.
Yeah.
So we waited about 2 hours after the MRI for our results. And the whole time my mom's like, just be optimistic. Like, you don't know, like it could be something different.
Mm-hmm.
It was the same leg, and we go in there. I'm sitting in the wheelchair, and my whole family's in there because they were all watching. And the guy comes in and goes, well, I don't have good news for you. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, what do you think it is? I said, it's ACL and meniscus. And he goes, yeah, you know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And I look at my mom, and I'm like, I kind of know my body a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
I looked at my dad, and I'm like, all right, let's get Tompkins on the phone. That's my surgeon. I said, let's get him on the phone. Let's get
Mm-hmm.
as quick as we can, get this done. And then it was kind of unique for me. So I did my surgery through Tria.
Okay.
And my physical therapy through TCO in Maple Grove. The head guy there, Eric, Eric and Christian was new this last one, but those guys are the best physical therapists I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I could contact them at any point in time. I got to be really good friends with them, but they really got me through it. And the second one was tough because it was like senior year.
Mm-hmm.
It's the summer is literally just like it's still going. Like, you want to go out and do stuff with your friends, but at that point, like after surgery, I'm no weight bearing, so I can't walk.
Yeah, you can't do anything.
I'm just crutching around, and I'm sitting at home just flipping through channels trying to figure out something to do.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, yeah, you talk about, one thing I kind of wanted to ask you about, and when you mentioned the let's get Tompkins on the phone, let's call the surgeon, how much does that kind of just like positive mindset that you bring, like how like what is the kind of, how do I word this, why do you do that? Is it because you want to tell your family you're okay? Is it because of your own psychological thing? What kind of process makes you to say, all right, let's figure this out, instead of go hug your mom and cry? Where does that kind of mind process go for you?
I would just say I've always been a positive person.
Mm-hmm.
I've always tried to look at the good. And for me, it was not only like being strong for my family and being strong for like my teammates that have watched me and been a leader by example.
Yeah.
It was also for me to like not let myself down. Like, hey, like you've worked this hard, and you deserve everything that's coming for you.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, good things will happen to good people that work hard.
Yeah.
It's just kind of how I live my life. And if I can stay positive in moments of adversity or just stress, that those will be things that people remember about me.
Yeah.
And I want them to look at me and be like, oh, he's gone through this, like everything will be all right.
Yeah.
Like
And I think, yeah, no, go ahead.
There's people that, like I help, my last one, there's a couple people I knew because I went to ACL like rehab, like class where you just work out. And Eric ran it, and Eric's like, well, like these people, like they gave me a list of people that struggle. He's like, can you talk to them?
Yeah.
And so like I had like 5 or 6 people that I would just contact and check in like once a week on how they're doing.
Yeah. And no, I mean, that's awesome. And I think, you hit the nail on the head when you talk about it has to be internal. It has to come from within. Because if it doesn't, I don't think you can ever, if it's external motivation, if it's somebody telling you, hey, you got to get better because you're going to be a good basketball player, it's never going to work. It has to, it has to come from within. I think, I've definitely seen that in my own rehab. And I think we have kind of similar mind processes and thoughts when it comes to that. You talk about your second one in your senior year. Where does your mind go in terms of college? Is it like, hey, I'm gonna maybe keep trying to play hoops, I'm gonna maybe do something else? Where did that process go for you?
Well, that summer was an interesting summer because I took a couple visits for football, had maybe took 1 or 2 for basketball. At that point, after my junior year, I was leaning a lot towards football. It's just I was a big physical guy. I played tight end and I love contact. That's kind of what it was. And then I got hurt, and I'm like, you know what? I just got to feel it out. And then I ended up just kind of deciding. I went on a visit to UMary, and they have at the time there's a bunch of my friends on the team, old Comets guys, Matt Johnson, Logan Nagorski, one of my other teammates I played with, Cooper Olson. And I'm sitting on the visit, and we're just us talking, and I just looked at my dad because it's just my dad and I look at him. I'm like, this definitely could be me. Like I see myself here, surrounding myself with these guys that I've known for a while. And yeah, I might miss football, but at the end of the day, basketball is always where my heart's been.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that's I think that's in, people that are listening that are in this process of, recruiting, and regardless of its injury or not, I think that kind of hit the nail on the head when it comes to like, you just kind of know, when you go, you just kind of know, and it's like, hey, this is the spot for me. And, I bet you can, attest to that. So, you head up to UMary, still probably pretty injured, probably going to miss the first year. Yes or no?
No. So the second one was probably the craziest for me. I got hurt in summer, and then I ended up playing the first game of our section final.
Okay.
Or our section tournament. So that was 6.5 months for me.
Oh, wow.
So I was back in 6.5 months, which,
jeez,
hindsight wouldn't have done, but at the same time, I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Because talking to my coaches and talking to my physical therapist, I'm like, look, like, is there really any risk? And talking with Tompkins, and my physical therapist is like, look, there is some risk. There's always a risk.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you just got to be comfortable with it. And I remember talking to my coach, and he's like, well, we'll do whatever you want to do. And I'm like, I go home, talk to my dad, and my dad's like, I'm not going to fault you for playing.
Yeah.
And there was a line that he kind of said, that he said, bet on yourself. Like, what do you think? And so then I went the next day to school. I went to my coach, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to do some practice stuff here. But I'm just going to get on the gun, and I'm going to shoot 400 shots during practice, if you're cool with that. And like, I know the scout, I know these guys through and out. And I played well. I didn't score because I just hadn't been touching the basketball a whole lot.
Yeah.
But I was able to make an impact, and which was really special for me. So
yeah, no, that's awesome. I think, that what your dad said, bet on yourself, that's kind of been my, my whole kind of motive through both of my surgeries. And I think, like we mentioned before, it's an internal drive. It's like, your body, what you can and cannot do. Like, at the end of the day, the doctors can tell you anything, PTs can tell you anything, but like, I think that's I think there's beauty in that too. It's like, it's like, hey, this is me, nobody else can affect my game. Nobody else can affect my, my body. Like, this is me. And I think there's obviously some pretty cool, psychological benefits of that. And I think that's pretty sweet. Take us through, because this is where the story kind of gets crazy. And you head up to, you graduate high school, COVID going on, head up to college. I'll kind of just let you take the reins on the next, 2 years of your life.
Yeah. I came in, so I got to Mary. I transferred at the end of the first semester, but got there. Coach Cattell was gracious enough to give me an opportunity to basically prove
awesome.
myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so I ended up going there. I was playing pretty well throughout the first, and that's when COVID hit. So, seasons later, everything's later. And I was just one day, I'm like, there was a couple times I had a hamstring injury on that same leg,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm in my training with the trainer, and I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, which every college athlete does.
Yeah.
I'm going, man, is this really worth it? Is this grind really worth it? And I kind of went back to my dorm, and I was like, you know what? Like, at the end of the day, it's gonna suck now, but this would definitely be worth it. Yeah. I ended up, I wanted to be closer to home. Nothing that UMary did. I love Bismarck. I love the UMary school. It's very nice, very beautiful. But I ended up transferring that semester. I gave Reimer, who was the old head coach here, I gave him a call because I've known him for a while. I'm like, look, like, just give me a walk-on spot. I'll prove what I have.
Yeah.
And so I ended up doing that. And it's worked out. Obviously, we have a new coach now, but
mm-hmm.
it worked out for the most part, and I'm really happy with my decision. I'm living with my my former high school best friend.
Awesome.
And then I know Austin Jensen from St. Michael, I've known for a couple of years, and then my other roommate Luke Taylor, I've known for a couple of years. So it all really worked out at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, it's special. It's, coming back, being around your family, I played in the NSIC too. And it's like, there's so many great places in NSIC, and it's great, but there's nothing better than, being around family and being able to,
mm-hmm.
Drive home, get mom's cooking, all that kind of stuff. You end up transferring to St. Cloud, and you kind of, obviously that first year you were there, you weren't healthy. You obviously, something kind of went down. Kind of take us through that one. Is it true? Was it a men's league game? Like, what's going on here, brother? You got to let me know this stuff, man.
Yeah. This one is definitely the most frustrating. So
mm-hmm.
I get healthy. I'm probably healthy for just a little over a year. And I'm just basically playing in a men's league in St. Michael through some friends that I know. And I'm just playing and stay in shape is all it was. And we were up, I don't know, maybe 35, 40 points. And it was like last 5 minutes of the game. And I basically just go to like wall up and jump. And, it's men's league. So these guys go all out. I'm not really trying all that much. But he like goes up for a layup, like Superman, like dives. And then as I'm in the air, he like wraps his legs around mine and brings me down. And so I land with my knee flat on the ground and my ankle all the way by my butt. And I heard the pops right then and there. And Matt was playing with me. And I look at him and I'm like, help me up, get me to the bleachers, go get your car. I gotta go get an MRI. And he goes, no, dude, like, you're being dumb. I'm like, no, like, for real. And then so I get there and I call my dad. Actually, I don't call my dad first. I call my old high school coach. I'm like, hey, like, I'm gonna need your help. Like, not physically, just I need you to support me. Because it was just a whirlwind. And I call my dad and I'm like, hey, dude, like, this happened. He goes, no, you're kidding me. I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm gonna be home in about 15 minutes. Can we get in your truck and go get an MRI? And he goes, yeah, immediately.
Yeah. Man, that's I couldn't even imagine, man, especially the position you're in where it's like, I'm sure you even told yourself, if I do it again, like the first 6 weeks of just like brutality, of just like pain. It's like, you just do not want to think about that. You do not want to go through it. You go through it, you get the surgery. You did ACL, MCL, and meniscus on that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
All three.
So you did the whole knee, which is, probably you're talking about a year. When the doctors talk is, they're going to tell you a year. You do it, you get the surgery, you go through the process. Why the heck are you still playing basketball? Like, why are you not done? Tell me that.
Yeah, it's going back to my point. It's proven to myself that I
Yeah.
can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And talking to a lot of old guys like throughout the summer, they're like, well, you got to think about yourself for the future.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I understand that. I get, I'll need to have knee replacements when I'm older, which is, it's part of the deal. But I'm only young once, and I only get to play college basketball once.
It's awesome.
To me, it's, and I'm going to go into the coaching profession, but to get to be in the locker room with some of my friends,
Yeah.
and get to play a sport I love, I wouldn't give that up for the world.
Yeah. No, there's nothing better than it.
Yeah, it's just so. And going back to what my dad said, just bet on yourself, like believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And I have now just a supreme confidence in myself, to really at any point where you could say anything, and really I'm so in tune with myself that I'd say what you want to say. It doesn't really matter, because I've fought through everything. There's really nothing you can say to me that'll get me down, because I've been at my lowest lows, my highest highs, and I know how to control that.
Yeah. And it feels so much more sweet when it's coming from, your internal self. And, you talk about, what your dad said, betting on yourself. And dude, it's worked. I mean, I've obviously I'm astonished by the story, but I've seen what you've done already. And I played in the conference. I know how tough it is. I know, obviously Division II, and, people want to, talk whatever. It's tough. Like, the league is tough itself. The NSIC, the teams that come in and play are tough. And you've started out great. You're averaging 15 through your first couple games. Just kind of, quickly as we wrap up, take us through how, that has felt. Not only for you as a basketball player, for you just like, as a dude, as a human, like how does that, continue to motivate you, and like, dude, I did this, like, being proud of yourself? Because I think that's something that a lot of us take for granted sometimes, where we're not, we don't give ourselves the credit for what we've done. Take us through the first, early parts of this season, and how you've just kind of been, I bet you're proud of yourself, and that's good to, to have. So kind of take us through that mindset.
Yeah. It's been a pretty good start to the season. Obviously, record's not what he wanted it to be, but for myself, getting on that first game, subbing in Kansas City, that was, I just couldn't help but sitting at the table waiting to check in. I couldn't just help but smile.
Yeah.
My dad and my mom were up there watching. I had a pretty good game. I would have led the team in points. I mean, but just going after and talking to my mom and dad, and my dad and my mom were both like, we both cried, for how much you've been through. You deserve the best. And I mean, it was tough, but at the same time, it was just, I took a moment just to kind of stand at the court in Kansas City, which is a really beautiful court.
Awesome arena. Yeah.
I'm like, dude, like, for everything you've been through, like, you deserve this. And then, we fast forward to Tuesday, we played Cato here, lost in a close one. My old coaches were there, all my high school coaches were there. They brought the high school team along, and then a lot of people I know. And for me to play really well, was something that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
I remember my high school coach was there after the game, and I just went and hugged him, and he just said, "I'm so proud of you. Like, you are my number one guy, no matter what. For what you have gone through, you're the toughest guy I know." And there, it was for someone to tell you that after what you've been through, it's just kind of like a sigh of relief. And it was kind of a pat on the back, like you've gone through so much, and just to reap the rewards right now is, you may not see it now, but you're gonna look back on it and be like, wow.
Yeah. And I think it's such a unique thing too, because it's like, obviously you play well, you have 19 points, 5-8 from the field, 3 steals, 5 rebounds, you have a good game. And to have people there that love you and love you, and it makes it, so much more beautiful. Obviously I played in front of my family, and I haven't played since my injuries, of course, but I think it's the number one thing that I look forward to. And it's like, dude, I cannot wait. And like, obviously I love basketball and I can't wait to play basketball again, but I can't just wait to like, just be myself out there again and see people like know that I'm, strong and confident. Let's wrap up with something we wrap up with on, all of our podcasts. I like to kind of let you have the floor for the last kind of whatever long you want to take. But one of my goals for this podcast is to inspire others, if anybody else is going through any adversity, whether it's injury, whether it's family related, anything in life, what kind of advice do you have for, maybe a younger guy, maybe a guy your age that are, going through injuries, going through adversity in their sport? What would you say if you had the opportunity to, just talk to them and give them some words of, wisdom?
I would just say stay the course.
Mm-hmm.
Stay the course, be yourself, and kind of bet on yourself as well. But also don't go through this alone.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you are struggling and you need help,
yeah,
please reach out to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, some people may not know what you're going through,
yeah,
but that's all right. Like you can still talk to them. And I've been an advocate for people that have gone through injuries. A couple of my friends back at UMary, Logan Nagorski just busted his knee up. I talked to him right away. I'm like, dude, like if you need anything, like I have a bunch of rehab stuff in my room. Like if whatever you need,
mm-hmm.
like let me know if you want to talk. Like I know how it goes. Like those dark days where you feel like you can't do anything right. Yeah. But then there's that one positive day that'll get you through the hump. Mm-hmm. There's one positive day per month, per week, where you're like, whoa, I can get my knee to 90. Whoa, I got full extension.
Yeah.
And then you see that slow muscle progression. And that's just kind of like a self-confidence builder. You're like, wow, I can really do this.
Yeah. So
I would just say, stay the course, keep your head down, keep working, just be you.
Yeah, no, that's awesome advice, man. I think it's at the end of the day, the number one thing that I've learned through rehab, and I think you're kind of, talking about it too, is like just like choose what kind of makes you happy. It's like you could have given up so many times. I could have given up so many times. Talk about Logan, he could give up, but it's like if it makes you happy, continue to pursue it. And I think there's, even if you don't become what you once were, I think there's there's beauty in that, and that you bet on yourself, and that it's about you, and it's what you're doing, what makes you happy. Tony, really appreciate you coming on the pod. I'm excited to watching you this year. I'm definitely gonna be keeping tabs. Take it easy on those northern boys up there, but appreciate you coming on, man. It's been episode 9 of the Double Down podcast, and we are out. Thank you guys for listening.